So I read a little bit about you just briefly on your LinkedIn profile, and I learned just before this call that you are also a professional poker player. So like that's a whole other conversation that we could have. But this call is about your work with Unlimited Bio, and I asked a bunch of people on my social media what they thought of this idea of life extension or even immortality, and I got a bunch of responses. So I'm going to get to those a little bit later. But just so we're on the same page, I will have you start by kind of giving the elevator pitch or the 30-second pitch about who you are and what Unlimited Bio is, and life extension perhaps too.
Yeah, hi Brandon. Thank you for having me. Actually, I went through those comments, so I see a post on YouTube, and I think there is a lot to talk about there.
Okay.
So, well, it's safe to say that people feel slightly skeptical, and I think that's good. That's the right audience, because it's boring to talk to people who share all your views. You don't have anything to discuss them. That's where the conversation should happen. Yeah, a bit about myself then first. So, yeah, you're right. More or less all the money I made in my life was by playing poker. And, I'll just talk a bit about that. When I played online, so I didn't see the people I was winning money from in most cases. But still, when you win a huge pot, you probably know that it's like a significant part of somebody's income. And then this guy starts rattling in chat like, you fucking moron, I hate you, I hope you get cancer. Kind of realize that it's not the thing you want to do for a lifetime and that you want your children to do and so on. So when I was making money like that, I was in parallel searching for more like profound ways to unlock my potential and to do something for this world. And so I initially thought that business is the way, because this way you can build scale, and this way you can create something that is has a massive impact on other people. And I experimented in various fields like furniture, electronics, souvenirs, clothing, vertical farming, all kinds of stuff. But it all led to me losing money eventually. And in parallel, I was kind of growing interest in human health and in what happens with us when we get older. And started experimenting with biohacking, with doing blood tests, different age measurements, how fast I could run, how much air I could take in, like the lung capacity, and so on. So all what's relevant for sports performance.
What made you interested in that? Because sorry to interrupt, but what made you interested in your health? Most people, I think, I mean, and I'm included in this, I didn't start thinking about my health until I saw signs of it, I guess, deteriorating. Like, oh man, I'm waking up and my shoulder is sore or something like that. Nothing major, but just started to feel some signs of aging. I got a few gray hairs or something like that. What made you so proactive?
Yeah, it could be, I had some severe problems when I was growing up. So I, for example, had a severe back injury. So I broke my back basically, and I had to spend half a year in like a special device which kept me upright, and I didn't sit for half a year at all. So when I sat for the first time, I realized that it actually requires some muscle training to be in a sitting position, because it was really painful to sit. And then I also had some problems with my lungs. So I had it's called spontaneous pneumothorax, when your lung just collapses without any reason, and you need to be taken to surgery for like an urgent procedure to get that lung back in shape. And so I experienced this, and it kind of maybe it's contributed to me thinking like, what can I do to improve my health? But what also contributed is that there are some sort of articles appearing in the web about that you can enhance your brain performance or whatever with certain substances. And since I was doing like a very high demanding intellectual profession, so to say, so playing poker, every bit of performance that you can get is valuable. So I was looking into pharma for that sense. And also in parallel, I was a bit like, interested in biology and then things around that. And there was this scientist in Russia that was getting some media attention. And he was like one of the most cited biologists at that time, Vladimir Leshko. So he developed like a very potent antioxidant. At that time, antioxidants were considered like very, very good for you, that they potentially can stop aging or whatever. It was proven completely wrong. But, the intersection with his work led me to understand that actually aging is a thing, and it's a thing that can be influenced with certain substances, biological means, therapies, whatever. Because like this very concept is that aging is just a biological process and it can be altered. I think most people never thought about or don't understand that. So they consider it, first of all, natural, and secondly, something which is just, was present for like everywhere, and it's like absolutely natural. Nothing can be done to affect it. We'll be born young, grow old, and die. That's like how things should be. And his work led me to understand that no, it's just another biological process which can be affected with proper scientific means.
Is there is this we didn't get to, the formation of your company, but I do want to take the chance here to start asking some questions about this, because I think, is there a comparable biological process that you could compare aging to that would help people understand your perspective more? Because when you say, oh, it's just another biological process, that still doesn't convince me anyway that it's not inevitable. Like what's another biological process that we change or eliminate or whatever that you might compare aging to?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. You could start really simple. For example, say you get gray hair, then you dye your hair, and the problem is gone. So you kind of fix the consequence. It's a certain trade-off, but your hair looks same as young, more or less. So that's one way to alter things. But in that case, we don't affect the cause. Right. Mm-hmm. And you can target the cause specifically. For example, if a disease is produced by a certain pathogen, and if you eliminate this pathogen, for example, with an antibiotic, right, the disease won't be a thing. And that's exactly what we did with like most bacterial diseases. We just killed them,
or a vaccine. Perhaps,
yeah.
As a way of affecting
same with vaccines, yeah. Just preventing it from occurring in the first place, and that's the perfect scenario. That's what we want. We don't want to get like really fragile, not being able to move, not being able to hold balance, shaking, and then like let's do something about this. Let's get you a new hand, or let's replace a certain organ in your body, or let's inject you with therapy. The ideal scenario for us is that we don't let it occur at all. Of course, right now it's absolutely impossible, and there is not a single approach or a single drug or anything in the world which was proven in humans to slow the process of aging. So in that regard, the people who commented on your video, they're right. Like, yeah, it's science fiction, but it's so to say plausible science fiction. Famous space flight was science fiction.
Because you see it, like you said, as a biological process. It's one then that theoretically could be prevented or altered.
Also that, but for example, we also have species such as certain jellyfish, certain amoebas, then you have turtles, sharks, and naked mole rats. All those species, and some of them are mammals, so they're very close to us in terms of how they're built. They don't age. So, for example, if you take a 5-year mold or naked mole rat and a 30-year naked mole rat, and you kind of measure them, compare them, it might be very hard or impossible to make a difference. And those are like tiny things, size of a mice, and mice live just 2 years, I think, or 3 years, or something like that. And those guys can live 30 years. So they die only because they kill each other. They don't die because they become old and crippled. It's not even clear why the hell they die, actually. So it's still an open question for science.
No kidding.
And
you said
will
naked,
they actually
naked mole
die?
rats?
Naked mole rats, yeah. You should look it up. They also look amazing. Very special creatures from Africa. So, for example, an important branch of research is now studying how these animals function, like why what kind of mechanisms are different than them, so that they don't experience like wrinkled skin, and we do.
Is it
but
for
most
you? Is it
importantly, death, of course, from.
well? Okay, so for you, is it a desire to stay young and healthy, or is it a desire to I want to see what is happening on Earth in 200 years, or both?
I would say probably the second thing, because I would say just staying young, healthy, it doesn't feel like a good motivator, because I think generally people, they cannot look into perspective. So it's hard to be emotional about something which is so far away. That's why we are not constantly walking and thinking about death and like being depressed all the time. Although we all know that at this point in time, it's inevitable. Like people from age 5, they know they're gonna die, and that's why I think we have a certain like built-in mechanism. So like beating death is not that good of a motivator. So for me, it's just curiosity. I see that there is like an endless number of opportunities in the world, things you can try, foods you can try, cultures you can experience, places you can visit, interests, books, sports, like whatever keeps you going. Maybe you want to watch all the series from Netflix, whatever. So, and this number of opportunities is expanding. And there is a number of questions I want to know answers to, like, is there anyone else in the universe, or something like that. So, and for that, it's apparent that our lifetime is not enough right now.
You know, people say that a lot. Life's too short. They travel someplace they enjoy, and they realize that just within that one small corner of some foreign country, they could spend. Well, where do you live? Are you in the Netherlands?
Yeah, I'm in the Netherlands.
So one could take a decade of their life traveling all over the Netherlands, and that's one small country. So, I mean,
that's a huge compliment for the Netherlands, but
I haven't been, but I'm sure there are corners of every city. I mean, I've traveled to a number of different countries. And I'm always amazed when I get there. It seems like the world just expands because you realize when you get there, there's so much more there than you had first thought. Like even if you go to a small island in the Caribbean, it's a dot on the map, and you arrive and you realize there are all these places to explore, to enjoy. And that's just on one little. So I hear people say, oh man, life's too short for, getting to explore the world, things like that. And yet there is just this incredible, immediate, universal almost pushback to the idea of extending life for a long time, a significant amount. Like if you say, oh, I'm going to add 5 years to your life, then I think most people are okay with that. But when you say, I don't know, hundreds of years, then it gets like, hey, now.
That's why you should add 5 years at a time. Should add 5 years and then ask again. 5 years and ask again. 5 years and ask. Then it's going to be indefinite, and people.
Yeah, I like Brian Johnson's approach, right? He says, well, just ask someone, do you want to die today? And everyone says no, right?
Yeah.
But if you say, do you want to live to be 200? It's like, well, no, I don't want to be old, and it's too and so like you saw the responses that I got. People were cynical about living for a long time on this. One person called Earth a hellscape. One person said, oh no, I don't want to live on this Mad Max planet for. And I don't know. That's such a fast. Those are such interesting responses to me, because it contradicts how they feel about living today, which is they would fight for their life if they were dropped in an ocean. They would swim. They would fight for their survival, and yet there's this long-term or big picture kind of cynicism or broad cynicism about. At least for those kinds of responses. I got other responses too that were like religious in nature, like, oh no, I know where I'm going after I die, so I have no problem with the idea of death. But I found it interesting that they were all against it, immortality specifically. I guess it's just such a huge concept. And I also think it's beyond biology. Entropy, right? Metal will rust, right? Trees, well, that's biology again, but inanimate objects will deteriorate. So it just feels like that's, entropy is just part of the universe. So, why should we be any different to that? And because it's been the case for the history of the universe, I guess, it's so baked into our culture that that's a really hard thing to dislodge or change. I'm guessing you and Brian Johnson and others who talk about life extension understand that. So you have a lot of patience with people pushing back on the notion.
Yeah, I talk about that with people all the time. So that's the big question, why it happens. And I think it's mostly cultural aspect. So we are brought up with that idea. We read about that in the books. We watch the movies. We hear stories about people heroically sacrificing their life or something.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like the idea of dying, and sometimes even dying for a good cause, whatever that is. It's like a big the big thing. It's hard to step aside and kind of think outside of the box there, I guess. Yeah. Also religion plays a role. The fact that everything is dying around us, and even the universe, and even we're told the sun is gonna die, and so those questions, I think, they leave us trapped into this thinking.
Do you think religion?
Although, as I'm saying, the examples are right there in the nature. You also see examples of fighting entropy and like going against, so to say, the common law.
It is funny. Like we have there's this instinctual rejection of immortality. I mean, it's also I was thinking a lot about this. It's also it's framed as a villainous pursuit, like so and so was seeking the fountain of youth, or like these are myths, right? Where the person trying to stay young forever doomed him or herself in that pursuit. A vampire lives forever, and they're monsters that feed on humans. These sorts of things. Yeah, I don't know,
exactly.
just
I think
more of that.
We were trying to, like, historically, we were trying to explain ourselves, like why do we have to die? So we were coming up with stories that make us feel comfortable, make our children feel comfortable and not afraid.
Yeah,
And so we were building this wall around us. But right now things have changed. We can see kind of more broadly, thanks to the science. We can look through those walls and actually discover what's happening there, what's happening within us that makes us age. And so far, we don't know if there is a single underlying process behind that that can be stopped. So some people thought initially that those for example, telomeres, so those were oxidative harmful oxygen species produced by within cells and that kill everything. So there are a bunch of those theories, and they were all broken by science, one after another. And right now, we only know that there's like a bunch of processes happening simultaneously. So there is no easy way to make you not age. So it's the thing that will slow this process down. It will be something not yet existing, and it either be a combination of many therapies at once, or it may very well be something that has not been developed yet.
It reminds me of when they were searching for genetic components. For like behaviors or diseases. Like some diseases have a particular gene and it's clear, or a chromosome or whatever. But when they're looking for a genetic component to addiction or alcoholism, you find that these are, I forget the term, but polygenetic or something like that, where it's going to be found all, in a, there's no gene for alcoholism or something like that. And so is that sort of like what you're discovering with aging? There's no single factor. It's a lot of things.
Yeah, for sure. So we see in people that even people with perfect genetics, they may live to 110 or 115 or so max, and then you still die due to a certain cause, and it could be connected, for example, with the fact that some proteins, they're only produced when you are a small baby. So after a certain age, the production stops. So when these proteins fall apart, then your body is no longer functional. Those are, for example, proteins like elastin. That's the thing which keeps your connective tissue, so your vessels and so on, keeps them elastic and able to handle pressure. And with the age, the stiffness of the tissues increases. So it could be that, it could be the repair, the damages in the DNA, which can no longer be repaired. So like with age, your cells divide. Every time your cell divides, the DNA gets worse and worse and worse, more and more mistakes introduced. And that impacts the quality of the proteins which are produced using that DNA. So your cells become functioning not as good. Also, there are parallel processes like cancer, which are basically a stochastic process. The more your cells divide, the more chances you get something goes wrong and mutations accumulate in the cancerous cell, the PS. So that's the another domain to that. So yeah, we see that there is certainly like an immense amount of work to be done there. And that's why it is still a science fiction, like the concept of immortality or even living to 120. It's still science fiction for now because nobody ever lived to 120. I mean, I think one person did, but it's not considered good quality data. So she may have had a fake birth certificate. That was a very common thing with these centenarians. So we don't have any people who reliably even live to 120. So I mean, of course, immortality is more or less bullshit right now. I mean, but it's a goal for us. So that's what we are looking forward to and working to make it happen. We'll see if we succeed or not.
Yeah, well, I do want to talk more about kind of the philosophy you approach life with, because that is so different to strive for immortality. That is such a distinction between you and 99.9% of the rest of the population. But first, let's talk about what your company is doing. You talked about a number of different biological factors that contribute to aging, the elasticity of proteins, I think is what you said. And the random mutations or breakdowns of cells. So are those areas that Unlimited Bio is researching? Tell me about your company.
Yeah, so we are a tiny company, and we unfortunately cannot focus on everything that interests us and on everything that we think might be potentially extending our life, because there are probably thousands of those potential approaches we need to experiment with. What we focus on right now is a few processes that we find important, that kind of are very prominent with age. The first one is decline in capillary density. So basically, your tissue, capillary density.
Capillary density, okay.
So every tissue, every organ, it's supplied with blood, and capillaries are the tiniest blood vessels. And with age, you get less blood supply in your skin, less blood supply in your scalp, less blood supply in your brain, in your heart, everywhere. So, and the blood supply is responsible for, of course, nutrient delivery, oxygen delivery, carbon dioxide removal, waste removal, and so on. So it's like roads. If you don't have roads in your city, you cannot have trade happening. Nothing happens. So you need roads, and you need roads which are able to move a big capacity of blood. And so this process declines, and we have a gene therapy which locally offsets that process. So it builds new capillaries. Then another thing we don't like, that with age we become weaker. So we are not able to lift, for example, a child anymore. When you are in your 70s or 60s, you're not able to keep the posture as good, so you walk like that with a stick and so on. So we don't like that. We think it shouldn't be that way. So we have a therapy which potentially may build muscle mass and keep you more strong with the years. Then we have another one which is responsible for formation of new connections between neurons. And that is directly connected to speed of memory, speed of learning, and so on. That's how fast you can digest information, learn new things, and remember stuff. Also very important here, because with age, we see that people develop dementia, and the brain works not as well. So I also think that it's like one of the reasons people think death is important is because they're afraid of old age.
Mhm.
I think that's like the main argument. I don't want to be a vegetable when I'm 80 or 90 or even for some people 70 or 60, whatever. So people understand deep inside that aging is a terrible thing. It just wrecks your body. It leaves you debilitated. It's it's a very, you can call it a disease. You cannot call it a disease, but it certainly sucks a lot. I mean, it's not cool to be old. It's terrible. It's painful, and of course, in your old age, you remember when you were young, and you kind of maybe you start already thinking that it's better to die than just to keep torturing myself with thoughts of when I was young, health, and so on. So uh, I think that's what people are afraid of. And that's why for now we decided to focus on functional stuff. So if we can make a person, a 60-year-old person, move as fast and think as fast as a 40-year-old person, then we did a great job. So that's what is really important for people. To look good, to function good, to think good, to resist infection. Immune system is also another aspect that we're interested, because if you with age, you get sick a lot, and it also sucks. So we need to keep that youthful somehow.
Do you what will be your first, and maybe you already have a product or a therapy. If you don't, what will be your therapy? Will it be an injection? Will it be a pill? What will this look like?
For now, like all those therapies I mentioned, they will be injections, and they already are. So we already have one available. That's because as a company, for now, we don't develop those therapies from scratch. We just license them from other companies. So the companies who already invested tens and hundreds of millions of dollars into clinical trials, they put the drug to use for a certain disease. For example, the one which fights capillarization, and the one which improves capillarization, it is used to fight a peripheral artery disease when you get a shortage of blood supply in your legs due to atherosclerosis, so an age-related process, and you may risk amputation. It's one of the ways how you can affect this process. So resupply the ischemic tissue, so tissue lacking oxygen, muscle lacking oxygen, which may die with through other route by building capillaries there. So this drug was developed to target disease, and right now the current status of regulations in 99% of the countries is that you cannot administer those kind of drugs for a different cause, especially if it's just like preventive or age-related condition. It sometimes is just impossible. You cannot say in the US, "Oh, let me try this gene therapy for improving blood supply in my scalp and not making my hair fall out," because FDA is gonna say like, "Sorry, uh, it's not like a serious condition," and they decide that we want to prove any gene therapies for that. Don't even try. You won't pass the ethical committee. It's not ethical
Yeah,
to use.
yeah. I ran
So
into this.
that's a huge barrier, actually.
Mm-hmm. I ran into this at this idea, the medical use versus an augmentative use, or I don't know what you would call it. I was speaking to people who were putting chips in their hands and talking about, oh, why don't we allow blind people to use echolocation like a bat, and that way blind people can see in a different way, but they would then understand where items are in space. And yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But then these guys I was talking to, were saying, well, why don't we allow that for everybody? I want to have echolocation, they said. But that's called augmentative. It's not medical or something like that is the terminology. So that's not allowed.
That's also a valid point. Yeah, if you want kind of to improve yourself, you're not allowed. But even if you want just to keep yourself the same way, you're also not allowed, because you first need to develop a disease, and then when your disease is severe enough, so when your blood sugar is at 7, you're good to go for this medication. If your blood sugar is still, 6.2 or 10, you're not sick enough. So they have this like artificial barriers constructed there, and it makes sense, to be honest. So we all understand why it happened, because it's in certain cases doing medication is harmful for you. So it's not like we should take all the medication.
And it's scarce. There's a scarcity
healthy
issue, and there's a reason why they ration, and so forth. So how many? So you have the capillary therapy injection available.
Yeah.
And people can then get it if they go to, say, that economic development zone in Honduras. That's where I was introduced to people, and I saw your post about Prospero, this economic development zone in Honduras, and that's how I met you online. Are people there, or are people traveling there to receive this therapy? And if so, how many have received it?
And exactly. People are traveling there because it's one of the few places in the world where you can more or less get anything you like, as long as you're rightfully informed about what this is, the consequences, the potential side effects, and so on. So you should sign an informed consent that you are rightfully informed, and we are being also monitored by the government, that we comply with the regulations there, because you cannot, of course, do something there which is harming people. Like you can also like inject people with poison or something. So it's not part of the deal. So it's not like some Wild West. So it's still regulated, but regulated in a very smart way, with insurance policies. So the more potential risk you generate for the subjects, the higher insurance rate you pay. And people are traveling there for regenerative medicine, so to get stem cells, to get gene therapies, to get sometimes participate in clinical trials. They also do clinical trials for certain types of cancer, I think, something like that. Because doing a trial there is generally less expensive than in the US. So it became one of these regenerative medicine hubs around the US. And people also travel to Mexico from the US, sometimes just to save healthcare costs. They travel to Bahamas, to Central American countries. So,
Was Unlimited Bio the company that provided the therapy that Brian Johnson took when he visited Prospero?
Company. They also operate. They also operate in Prospero. It's a company called Minicircle. They also develop gene therapies.
Okay. How many people have you had visit to take your therapy?
We only had around 10, I think. So we just started this year with making it available. But we hope to scale soon. So we want to launch a few promising indications with this exact therapy. One of them is going to be erectile function / dysfunction. because it's also tightly connected with the loss of vasculature in the penis. And so we think that this therapy might really help according to the studies on animals that we saw so far. And even potentially with also female infertility, because the endometrium, so the lining of the womb, its quality and its ability to grow a baby, it's also connected with vascularization, which also declines with age, as I mentioned. So we have room to experiment there, and when those studies are in the initial stage, people participate in them. They don't. It doesn't cost anything for them. When we are already on a more advanced stage, on a stage when we need to show the efficiency, when the safety was already established, when we need to show the efficiency, in this case, we may run trials, and it's legal then when patients reimburse the costs of participation in the trials. And that's how we can actually build and these therapies and get data without investing too much. Because right now, if you take US, bringing in one drug to market may cost over $1 billion and over 10 years to complete.
Is your strategy Go ahead.
Yeah, 90% of those costs are human trials. It's very expensive to do this.
Is your strategy then to find existing therapies and apply them to healthy people? Like, they have this therapy to improve capillary function for people with bad blood flow. So what if we gave it to healthy people to maintain their healthy blood flow? Or, they have this therapy to, I don't know, keep your arteries clean. I'm just making one up. I don't know. So why don't we give that to people to maintain their clean arteries? That, are you approaching existing biotech companies who have these therapies for diseases and health conditions and saying, hey, let us market this to healthy people and they'll pay to have this so they can stay healthy?
More or less that. So that's one approach, preventive. In that case, the problem is that it's if you really maintain in the same shape, it's almost impossible to measure. So you may say, I inject you with water and it maintains you in the same shape. We measure you right now and 1 year later, and we don't see any difference. So my water worked great to keep you in the same shape. So that's why we actually need to see improvement. In certain cases, for example, if we experiment with people regrowing hair, we need to see actually more hair on your head and thicker hair on your head. In this case, we say it works. For skin, I think the main factor for young age is UV exposure, because you really rapidly accumulate damage. With that, if you compare your skin quality, say on your forehead with something like on your belly, you will see a huge difference, because your belly doesn't ever get sun and your forehead gets all of the sun. So if you just touch, it's different.
Gosh.
So with your face, I think shielding UV is the best thing.
Okay. Yeah, well, again, because he has so much popularity now, Brian Johnson, he was on Time Magazine, he was on Netflix, all of this, but he talked about shielding himself from the UV. And so, like, I don't know if he uses an umbrella or a parasol, but he stays out of the sun. And that confused me right away, because, I mean, don't we need vitamin D? Isn't the sun healthy for us? And then, of course, there's the cosmetic Like, don't we want a nice golden tan? But yeah, so maybe the health benefits are oversold, kind of like they talk about the health benefits of wine as a way to justify drinking alcohol. And so maybe they talk about the health benefits of getting a lot of sun because it justifies their desire to have golden skin.
No,
I don't know.
sun does have health benefits. So it's even Brian Johnson says that like early morning sun, late evening sun is good because you also get production of nitric oxide in your skin, which and in your body overall, which also helps with actually improving blood supply. It dilates your vessels. Then you also get proper circadian rhymes, so to fall asleep on time and to wake up on time when you need the sun. Then also vitamin D you mentioned, but still you don't want to actually expose yourself to harsh radiation just to get vitamin D, right? It can happen in the morning, can happen in the late evening, and you can also supplement in case you lack vitamin D. So there is always that option.
Yeah, it struck me while you were discussing extending fertility and sexual function. While people are averse to the idea of immortality, they do want to extend the length of time that they can have children and be sexually active, obviously. So I wonder if the idea of immortality, if it's ever accepted, it would be accepted incrementally. Like, oh, you mean I can live to be 150 and I can have a child when I'm 50 years old or 60 years old? A woman might be very interested in that if she never had children, before she hit 40 or something like that. Yeah, so it seems like that could be at least life extension, because who's going to turn down the idea of feeling younger for 10 more years? I don't know. Is that kind of the roadmap you might see as you proceed in this field, in this pursuit?
Yeah, it's a good point, Brandon. So I think it's about opportunities. So, for example, imagine you grew up, say you were born in a relatively low income family, so you kind of were working your ass off to make an income. Then you had a family, then you were making an income for the family, paying mortgage and so on. And then you're 60 already, 50, and you realize that so many things you could have done, you're already incapable of doing. So you cannot go and start mountain skiing at 60 if you never did that before. Probably won't be a good idea for you, right? So life extension and health extension gives you opportunities you wouldn't otherwise ever get. So in a sense, if it becomes widespread, then it's unlimiting people, so to say. It's making your life more fulfilling in the end. And yeah, it's for sure it's gonna be incremental. So I mean, this whole concept of immortality is just science fiction stuff and just a word that kind of has a big meaning to it. But in fact, that's not how we'll feel about it, because it will be just very slow process. So this is already happening. People are living longer and longer. So like this society is aging. You see different kind of composition of people on the streets. You see people having children at old age and so on. So this transition in the society, it's already occurring. It will be just accelerating even more, maybe accelerating exponentially, hopefully. So it's not like one day we will watch TV and Jeff Bezos will announce that he achieved immortality. I think that's kind of how people see it. It just will. People will just still die, but they will die less and less and less, and maybe in a few hundred years, it will be like completely unrecognizable.
Yeah,
There
maybe I.
will also always be people who are, I don't want to take this drug, I want to die. Like, you're welcome. I mean, nobody pushes you to take this vaccine, or, well, sometimes they do, but generally you're free to reject any kind of treatment, right? If you think cancer treatment is harmful for you, and it makes more sense like to meditate all the time to kill cancer, then you're welcome to do so. But, um, so there were always people who are skeptical, who are like their religion doesn't allow that, or their cultural upbringing doesn't allow that. So people will keep dying. I think it just will be less of a thing with time.
Yeah, maybe I was sensationalistic in the way I posed that question leading up to this interview. It did get a lot of responses, though, so that's good. But maybe I shouldn't have asked about immortality. I should have simply asked about life extension or life improvement or something like that, because that seems like something more people would get behind. But yeah, that jump to immortality is the thing of legend, and the even religion, and like it would be making a deal with the devil. People would say, if you could live forever, it'd be like selling your soul or something like that, or so. I was curious about this earlier. Do you? I don't know how you feel about spirit, the spirit and the afterlife and these spiritual religious concepts. But do you think human religion is in part, or significantly, not just in part, but significantly shaped by the inevitability of death? And so this is where ideas of an immortal paradise and things like that come from in religions?
Yeah, for sure. I think explaining death and explaining what happens after death, that's like the main purpose of the religion. It serves all kinds of religions. And I personally like the argument that in all those like various isolated islands and lands, and like Australia, like certain islands in the Indian Ocean, like Latin America, Europe, and so on. Everywhere, people develop their own religion and their own ways to explain why death is important. And they had different gods. So some thought it's like they're hidden in the thunder. Some thought they live in the river. Some thought they are within trees. Some thought they are somewhere floating around us, whatever. And they came up with different explanations in isolated conditions, and with like completely different explanations and different theories what happens. Well, for me, it leads to thinking that there is no reason to rely on that in any sense. So it's not an argument why afterlife should exist, with the presence of all of those stories. So it might very well exist. Of course, we cannot see if it does or does not, but I don't think it affects our behavior in this world in any degree. So we have no idea what we should do to get there, if we can get there, how we can get there, because the theories are completely different and in some regard conflicting. So like Vikings thought that you should kill as many British people as you could to get to heaven, right? For some reason, we don't do that these days, right? So we consider that we need to, for Christians, we need to deprive our life of sin and worship Jesus Christ and so on. So, yeah, I always thought that we are kind of hold different sides with religion. People who don't want to die, so to say, and religious people. But recently I was proven somewhat wrong by an interesting case in the US. So recently in New Hampshire, they passed a bill called Right to Try bill. And this bill, it unlocks experimental therapies for patients, sometimes in therapies that have not yet been tried in humans. So if a certain physician, a certain doctor thinks that this therapy might be beneficial for your dangerous condition, you have the right to try it, and the doctor won't be liable for that. And this bill was passed with the support of, I think it's called the Association or something like that of Churches of New Hampshire. And this law, this bill is very tightly connected to with also breakthrough therapies that will potentially have an effect on aging, because it also opens up huge routes to experiment with that. I thought, like, wow, church can actually be our ally. It just depends on how you interpret what's written in the Bible. And, when you read certain parts with a certain angle, you may very well find an interpretation that our goal as a humanity is by defeating death on planet Earth and make it like an eternal Garden of Eden or whatever, right? In that case, we kind of, with godly means, we achieved, because God gave us genes, DNA, and gene therapy, and cancer treatments, and all that. Maybe it's trying to push us to use that and to achieve immortality on Earth. Why not?
So maybe to reach out to the religious communities, you could say, let's bring things back to how they were in the Garden of Eden, when there was no death and we had heaven on earth, kind of.
Yeah,
I don't know.
it's like a game,
just a thought.
it's like a game. You start with 0, you start with 2 people, Adam and Eve. Now your mission is to build the civilization, develop technologies, and then eventually circle back and make everyone as Giannis Skalka as Adam and Eve.
It might be a way. I don't know. I think there is a potential connection there with the religious community. I don't know. I like to think about collaboration. I just spoke to someone who read a story that I did about gun laws in the U.S. and because we've had some shootings here. I'm in Minnesota. We just had a church shooting about a month ago. It was in a Catholic church, and anyway, she was with an organization that disagrees with my position, and yet we got coffee, and I want to see people come together and come up with the best solutions for progress, wherever they might be coming from, unless it's malicious, unless they're evil, right? Then I don't, but I don't think, 99% of people are evil. I think they're good. And so, I recognize, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm guessing most of the people that are in this life extension community might not be very religious, but if there can be a religious connection to help all of humanity, because certainly religious people get therapy for diseases, and they want to see their grandkids grow and all that. So there's clearly a common interest there. But yeah, when you talk about the big questions, then there's conflict, but maybe just keep it small. Like, let's just live better, while we're here, and healthier, and that kind of thing.
And maybe there is no conflict after all. So I think we actually need to talk more with the church, and maybe we'll eventually find out that we don't have a conflict at all. They just didn't realize that we can actually achieve that because we don't have this opportunity unlocked to potentially slow down aging with the means of biotechnology. Maybe that's the most religious thing you could do. So hopefully there is no conflict.
it's a fascinating topic, right? Immortality. It's kind of like imagining what if we had unlimited money? What would people do? Would people be free to create more art, or would people use that money to become very lazy and gluttonous? They'd eat all the time. They would become sedentary, and I think you see with people who receive a lot of money, it's a magnification of their character. And I think if there's a sudden or even a gradual significant increase of time, that too could be a magnification of character. So if you're one to put things off and be lazy, now you can have decades more to do that. But if you're one to be involved and engaged with life, well, now you've got decades more of engagement. If you're a selfish person, then you're like, well, what do I care about legacy? I'm not going to die, so I'm just going to be hedonistic and get what I want. And I don't care about having kids or kids in general because they're not my legacy. You know what I mean? So these big questions about how ethically we're affected by the idea of immortality, I think, is interesting too. But again, it's more of just a thought experiment than anything, because right now we're just discussing living a few years longer.
Yeah, I think it will be a very gradual transition, as I mentioned. So we'll adapt. It's like, imagine people 500 years ago thinking about their life prospects, like living in the Middle Ages somewhere. Like they're thinking completely about the different things that we do right now. We think about like getting an education, building a career, getting a job, whatever. And imagine how different mindset was back then. And when also people for ages, they didn't see anything changes. So they were using like the same shovel, the same instrument they were using 100 years ago. And like they would pass it on to their children and so on. So you couldn't see any sort of development anywhere from the technological standpoint. And right now, of course, we run completely different software. So I would say like our built-in neural networks, they are trained in a completely different manner than these people 500 years ago. And there is this question for me: how much can it speed up more? So maybe we will become overloaded with all the information and all the things we can do, and also with how fast things change right now in the world. Sometimes I feel like, let's slow down a bit. I mean, like all those new LLMs updates every month. That's a bit too much. So, we'll see how it goes. So it's hard to look into that. But what I hope is it's kind of inevitable. Being alive and experiencing that is better than being dead and not experiencing that. So let's try to see how it goes. In case you don't like it, you always have
That's
an
right.
exit
You can
door.
always die. Yeah. I'm gonna read a couple more comments because I actually had a couple of. And I put it on various platforms. So maybe you saw the ones on YouTube, but I also put it on Facebook and TikTok. And I think we actually covered a couple of the areas. There's just general disinterest. One guy said it would get very boring. There's the dystopian one. No thanks. Eternity on this earth would be hell. Someone mentioned an episode of an old TV show where an evil doctor, I mean, there it is, spells it right out, it's evil, starts a life extension foundation to extract organs from still living victims. So there's a, kind of the villainous angle on those who promise life extension. But we kind of covered those. So I want to talk about a scientific one. I had one scientist who immediately asked, well, who were you interviewing? And he asked, is it gene therapy, in vivo, gene editing? And he said, I actually work at an anti-aging biotech startup. And then he asked, how effective, so here are some specific questions, and maybe you know the answers to this, I don't know. How effective is injecting naked DNA, and have they looked at other delivery mechanisms? Viral vectors, meaning I think attaching to a virus and having that go in there and inject it. And then he mentions lipid nanoparticles. I'm not sure what those are, fats, maybe. And then he said, what difficulties are there getting treatments for aging in the US since aging isn't considered a disease? Well, I think we talked about that a little earlier where the FDA discourages that, but maybe you can talk about the first part of his questions.
Yeah. So generally injected naked DNA, it's problematic because it doesn't survive that well in the body. So it gets chopped by various enzymes in your blood and so on. So for example, if we inject naked DNA, a plasmid, it can also get transferred through your bloodstream to other parts of the body. That's why it makes sense to package plasmids, for example, in lipid nanoparticles. In this case, your plasmid is wrapped in a bubble of lipid, and this plasmids can travel through the bloodstream and get into different cells throughout the body. So we are certainly looking at that.
Did you say plasma?
Plasmid. Plasmid is a circular DNA, so a DNA which was built in a circle. So it doesn't have a beginning or an end, like our DNA is just a line, right? And this is a circle.
Okay.
Yeah, so we are looking at viral delivery as well. So all our next therapies, except for the first one, they're going to be with the viral vectors, because viruses are really good at basically infecting cells and injecting that DNA inside. And then cell uses this DNA as an instruction to build new proteins. So in this case, it's important to note that gene modification doesn't happen. So your DNA stays the same. You just get additional DNA copy next to your DNA, which is serves as an instruction. So your cell produces all the normal proteins it needs to survive, plus a bit of some other protein, because it has additional DNA which you injected here and there. And so this cell, it kind of becomes a biofactory working to produce the protein that we need to be elevated, that we need to if we need to offset a certain process connected to age. So plasmids are problematic to deliver, and in most cases, I think they don't work. Packaging them in lipid particles helps, and we're looking into that, and delivering them with viruses is also good. We're also working on that.
Wow. Brian, I know him, the guy who asked this question, and he introduced me to the idea of that that they use viruses to treat disease or infection or an illness, and I had no idea that they use a virus to help us. I knew the general idea about vaccines, and that you take I don't know if that's this gets beyond my understanding, but I knew vaccines use that, but the way he described it to me was in such a way where it seemed like we want this live virus to go in there, but instead of delivering disease, it's going to deliver a benefit.
That's how it works. Yeah.
Wow.
So right now, for example, we get, if we even leave aging aside and all its immortality and all that, For example, we get children born with severe genetic disorders. For example, spinal muscular atrophy, when child can walk and then just dies at age 15 or something, right? And the only way you can treat it right now is with gene therapy. So these children, they get huge doses of these viruses carrying correct copies of genes. So they get a lot of this, so to say, functional correct protein produced within their body next to that new DNA. And it helps to, in some cases, completely eliminate the disease. And if you already do that when the person is age 20, it most likely won't work. So the earlier you act, the better. As we discussed before, when damage has already accumulated, it's hard to repair. It's same like with your car. If you just, change the oil and keep it in shape, or change the tires sometime, when you wait until it completely breaks down and doesn't drive, then maybe you won't be able to repair it at all. So it's same with our health. It's good to maintain it and not to repair the damage.
Do you see your work as helping with disease treatment as well? So Unlimited Bio talks about living better, living longer, for healthy people living longer, healthy lives. But I imagine that the data you receive from your from administering your therapies could also be useful in learning about, if this works for people who are young and healthy, like maybe that'll help inform the treatment of diseases too.
Yeah, that's like a side effect for us, but we're looking into that. For example, if we take erectile dysfunction,
Right.
It is a disease, a valid condition, debilitating condition, so it's impacting the quality of life. And thanks to the Prospera way we operate, we're able to repurpose the drug we already have on the market to that condition and start a trial really fast. Because in the US, it would take multiple committees, getting a lot of paperwork done, bureaucracy, at least, 2 to 3 years, even start a trial. And there we can do it in a few months. So if we see the opportunity and we have the budget for that, or we find some additional budget for that, we'll be able to run those trials at a low cost. So we may potentially even unlock some new therapies for people with severe diseases, like severe genetic disorders, but were not addressed by general pharma because maybe the market is too small, or they just ceased developing it because they discovered some liver toxicity or whatever. It could be a thing. Maybe it's not going to be us, but you can start your own company there and say target people with severe diseases. It's also a great cause, and we are fully for curing all genetic disorders. For example, my son was born with deaf, completely deaf. Although we didn't have any history of deafness in the family, but it still was a genetic thing. So me and my wife, we have a 25% chance of having deaf children due to all the genetic variants. And for example, if we had a child 5 years later, so our son was born roughly 11 years ago, and at that time in Russia, the genetic testing wasn't widespread, like commercially, for $100 you get your DNA examined. A few years later, it became a big thing, and everybody did DNA tests. And they're basically good for nothing, so there is not much thing you can get from that test. Not much sense to make it right now. But one of the things they easily show is those kind of genetic variants. So if we did it with my wife and then did an IDF with embryo selection, we would have 100% chance of getting a hearing child. So right now we have like the biotechnological means to prevent genetic disease more or less completely. We just don't use them. Like people sometimes don't understand they have those means. Some countries, they don't have it available and so on. But those tools already exist. In some cases, we just need to connect the dots and we completely eliminate a certain disease. Same as with some cancers. Like some cancers are caused by a virus. If we vaccinate against that virus, we prevent 99% of that cancer. But some countries don't have vaccination programs.
Right.
So the cancer is
Right.
still thing.
Yeah, well,
So-
that's a whole, that's actually another objection. And it reminds me of what I hear about people objecting to wealthy people traveling to space. But we had a few people who spoke about economic classes. And one guy said, only rich people will be able to afford this. So basically only for the wealthy, said someone else. And then a third person said, who can afford to live forever? Just billionaires. So it was this grievance from those who aren't rich that this would be something for the rich that won't affect them. How do you respond to that?
Well, history shows that all technology starts super expensive, clumsy, hard to use, only used by the rich, and then it scales. Happened with cars. It happens with accessibility of medical treatments. It happens with transport airlines, even space flights. They're already way less expensive than when there were only two companies in the world launching people into space, right? It gets kind of with biology. If you take those vaccines, right now they are like less than $1 probably to produce, and they're really similar in some cases to gene therapy. So eventually it will scale. Believe me, if we'll see that we can make a person look 10 to 15 years younger, it's going to be a huge thing. Like everybody would want that, and the scale brings accessibility. It will come. But yeah, I understand those concerns. Like also every technology initially it kind of increases the gap. So there is always a certain period when this gap increases and then it snaps and there is no gap at all. So that's how it works with every tech.
Maybe insurance companies will pay for life extension gene therapy when they realize they'll have a customer for 10 years longer. Maybe the economic incentives could line up for such things.
Yeah, they could. They could, because the point is to also keep the person functional. You will, if you are still economically active, so you're working, you are producing some sort of a product, then you're a valuable asset for the economy.
Yeah, I could see
If you are
governments
just
maybe
getting,
paying for that then.
Yeah, if you are getting pensions, because governments, they spend a lot of pensions. That's the main concern for them. They don't invest in that because if they invest the number of years they pay pensions, like the economy is gonna collapse. So that's kind of, I think, a barrier for us. Because also extending age of retirement for governments, it's a very painful process. They get a lot of backlash for that. So nobody likes to do that, but they still do.
I guess they'll have to make a deal. Hey, well, we'll pay for your gene therapy for more life, but then you need to, but then you won't be able to take out retirement benefits for 5 years or something like that.
Governments are becoming progressively less important. So they're a bit, reactive. Same as religious institutions, they're very reactive. But for example, now we have cryptocurrency everywhere, and it's kind of got out of control. And the same happens with the biotech because it's very accessible. Like right now, I can order a gene therapy with a shipment to my house and like inject it into myself for a few $100 from it will be for research for mice, and I don't recommend it to do that. But it's very accessible, so you can do have a lab at home and do sample plasmids or whatever. So when the tech is that accessible, then it's like impossible to slow it down. So it will get out and it will be accessible.
Are the companies that you work with, do they fund your operations because you're finding them a whole new market for their products?
Well, generally, no. For big for companies that sell tens and hundreds of thousands of drugs to hundreds of thousands of people, we seem like an absolutely insignificant thing, and people doing some sort of weird longevity stuff that they don't understand. Which is not allowed in more or less any country of the world. So they used their like disease indications, and I think they're very skeptical on that side. Most pharmaceutical companies, when they see a huge market, of course they will be very interested. For now, they don't see any market at all. Like administering people in 10 clinics in the world, it's not a market for them. So. When they see a huge economic opportunity there, they will come, of course. So, but so far it doesn't exist.
Well, how did you start working with the capillary therapy company then?
Well, yeah, in that regard, one of the key figures in that company is very much aligned with our mission and with the idea of impacting aging, so slowing down aging. And for him, I think personally, it's a major interest that his therapy gets more data, gets more exposure, and we kind of see we apply it where we think it might work, not where we are allowed to. So by a regulator that thinks that it should only be administered for that disease, but that not for that one, or stuff like that. So we are in Prospero, we can kind of approach that with an open mind. We just see what kind of like bottlenecks are in front of us in terms of life extension and how those bottlenecks can be affected. We may, so certain approaches might work, certain approaches might fail. The ones that fail, we discard and we look for new things in the field. The ones that fail, the ones that succeed, we build up upon, and eventually we hope to see a prominent effect on life extension.
I'm guessing you're seeing more and more activity, interest, emails, people like me asking you for an interview. Like, this strikes me as a growing. For decades, there have been people trying to extend their life. Remember, and he's still alive, but I think Ray Kurzweil. I don't know if you've heard that name. He's in Silicon Valley, and he takes like 50 pills a day or something like that. Some maybe even 100 pills a day. Like, it's all about the pills for him. He's not doing what you're doing yet. That technology wasn't around when he started taking all these. But I'm guessing with the science around genetic engineering and viral engineering, developing, then the potential and the vision for what can be done is growing, and so there's a whole. This is kind of a new wave of life extension research and interest. Is that how you see it?
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. It's accelerating for sure, and we see some interesting trends. So, like influencers like Brian Johnson appearing. We see trends like global celebrities, for example, like Kardashian sisters, getting stem cell therapy and getting our gene therapy. I think that's an important fact. That we see, I don't know, people like dictators of the world talking about living to 150. Then we see there's people like Jeff Bezos, Sam Altman investing in biotech. And for example, Sam Altman invested in Retro Bio. It's a company which openly puts up a goal. We want to extend life by 15 years or something like that. So they don't say we are targeting this type of cancer or something. They say we want to extend life by 15 years or so. So yeah, it's growing. There is also this initiative now in on the ARPA-H. So it's a U.S. government initiative, and they recently backed. I'm not sure how to formulate that correctly, but like a brain transplantation, so continuous brain transplantation when you replace damaged parts of the brain piece by piece. That might eventually allow to replace the brain in its whole as a whole thing, just by tiny pieces, and you get a new brain. Because people like our dictators, they talk like, let's replace all the organs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can do that, but you cannot replace the brain. And also the vessels, so the blood vessels are hard to replace. So there are some, interesting research directions appearing, also growing new organs and so on within animals, within so to say, organ bags, they call them. So basically clones. So there's research directions that were not there 20 years ago, and but unfortunately it's still too slow. So we're still dying like hell. 100,000 people a day die. So so far it's just stories. It doesn't translate to us living very
There's
long.
also
that's why we started the company.
Well, yeah, and then there's the idea of abandoning the body altogether and uploading our consciousness on a computer or something, and living through that. I've heard of those sorts of notions as well. But I like your approach. Let's just have healthier, one step at a time. Let's just live healthier longer.
Yeah, we should have all the options. If we have mind uploading, I'm all for it. I mean, you can subscribe to that and experiment. I mean, but I think we should keep all the options open and not disregard our physical bodies for now.
Well, so people who are interested in your work or even your therapy, just go to your website and fill out a form, or how do they get in touch with you and do all that?
Yeah, you can connect via website and leave your contact data. So we might potentially launch some clinical trials, and they might be quite accessible even. So you will only need to reimburse travel costs and so on. But the therapies in those cases will be provided for free. You can also just subscribe to our social media X, Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever.
And would that trial be held at Prospera too?
Yeah, in Prospera, Honduras.
Well, they get to visit the Caribbean then as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So
that was quite a paradise destination. So it's not it's a nice vacation plus.
Yeah, and they get to explore that.
Potentially claim confirmed.
Roatan is another one of those places where I hadn't even heard of it, and then I go there, and I've been there now 3 times because I'm a big fan of the Prospera governance model, and just in the last time I got acquainted with the biotech community and the companies like yours. I met maybe your co-founder and his wife. I can't remember their names, but anyway, yeah, I met. So I was acquainted with your company, but because I've been there 3 times, I've traveled around, but there's still many places on the island I haven't seen, and again, it's just that idea of you go to one place and then suddenly you realize how big one little place is, and it just lends itself to that idea that you mentioned about I want to explore so many more countries and read so many more books and find out if we're really going to be to Mars by 2070 or, whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's...
travel to Mars yourself and
come right,
back,
exactly.
hopefully.
Well, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it, Vladimir, and all the work you're doing to advance this science for humanity. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Brandon, for bringing up those topics. It was a pleasure to discuss and to talk about this. I don't think we talk about it enough since it's like the biggest problem we have right now. I think is that people are getting old. So thank you for being available to talk about that.
Well, like I said at the beginning, I've got more, you can't really see it here in this low resolution video, but I got more gray, and I'm 44 now, and it's not this, I can't go to the gym and exercise the way I used to. My knees make a little bit of noise, and so it's like nothing will wake you up more than reality when you hit firm middle age. So I don't know, maybe I'll be one of your clients one day too.
Okay, that would be awesome.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Brian.